It's time to talk with the doc as Dr. Tim McKnight is with us this morning. Good to see you, as always. I don't know if you were out waving at us at the parade last night, but I just assumed you were.
I was waving from a distance, yes.
So good. So you got a hold of me about something called oral lesions. In that sense, it sounds a little ominous, but these are common things, and they're not overly dangerous, are they?
No, not the ones I'm talking about.
But they're painful.
They're painful, and they're stress related. Now, before I explain those two that are common that people deal with frequently, there are oral lesions that we have to be concerned about. A smoker, somebody that chews tobacco, somebody with chronic acid reflux, especially if they're older, 40s, 50s. That's not old, but it's not young necessarily. And those people can actually have cancers in the mouth. And so there are oral lesions that we do have to be careful with. But the ones that I'm talking about are the two most common stress-related lesions around or inside the mouth, especially around the holidays because of the stress, the way we eat. And first is cold sores, canker sores. We call them aphthous ulcers. And then the other one is a cold sore.
Okay.
And
there's a difference, obviously.
There's a difference, and normally you have one or the other. You don't necessarily get both. I get canker sores, never had a cold sore. And my daughter has cold sores, never had a canker sore, so you don't typically have both. Canker sores are very painful. They look like they're a little round, probably about the size of a pencil eraser in general, maybe a little smaller. And it's an erosion of the lining inside of the mouth, so usually on the gums, the tongue, or inside anywhere inside the mouth, often on the inside of the lips. And there's kind of an erosion of the exterior lining of the mucosal tissue, and it kind of exposes the nerves, and so you'll see an erosion with a red ring around it, and they're very inflamed, extremely painful, and they often last up to 2 weeks. 20% of the population has these, so if you've had them, you know what I'm talking about. They can be really, really sore, so you're always scrambling. What do I do? How do I get relief with this? And there's really no good relief for it. That's the problem. So I just saw somebody the other day that had several of these, and they were in a lot of pain. So I called the pharmacy. I said, I need a combination of lidocaine, which is a numbing agent, Maalox, which is sort of a kind of blocks the acid, and Benadryl, which is another numbing agent. So this is something they can swish around in their mouth, numb the mouth up, so they can eat better. And the numbing action only lasts for 15 to 20 minutes, so it doesn't last that long. So in addition to the topical treatments for temporary relief, I suggested they alternate with Tylenol and ibuprofen. 3 ibuprofen and an extra strength Tylenol. Take one of those every 3 hours to get some kind of relief. You can get a low-grade fever with these too when they're really bad. So they're miserable. We don't really understand what the cause is. There's people think it's stress-related, which I think there's a component to that. Diet-related. There's some people that have food sensitivities, especially things like chocolate, coffee, strawberries, eggs, nuts. I know for me, walnuts seem to be one that if I ate a lot of walnuts, that would trigger it. And then spicy or acidic foods. And they also believe that there's a predisposition or tendency to be deficient in some key vitamins. So vitamin B12, zinc, folic acid, and iron. And some people also recommend taking vitamin C. So we've mentioned these B vitamins before. There's folic acid and B12. These are really two common vitamin B deficiencies for a lot of people. So rather than take those separately, just get a B complex and take it together. So I would say if you're dealing with these canker sores when they first start, that's usually what we're trying to do is head off the inflammation, or in the case of cold sores, we're trying to reduce the viral replication. So start treating that early with good doses of vitamin C, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams a day, a B complex, 50 milligrams of zinc, and then try to avoid those foods that trigger it and make it worse. You're not going to drink something that's really acidic, or you're not going to probably want tomatoes or those really acidic kind of foods, because that will really burn it and make it worse. But you're just going to be uncomfortable until it gets better. Now, there's also I found one really good over-the-counter treatment for this. If you've got one or two of these cold sores, it's called Xylactin B. And what that is it's in a little tube. It's a little kind of an orange gel. And if you can dry off, so let's say you have a canker sore on your lower lip. If you can dry that the lower lip out with, I say like a Q-tip, just kind of roll a Q-tip over the surface of that lesion, and then with the other end of the Q-tip, apply this Xylactin B. That will burn and hurt like crazy for about 5-10 seconds. But what it does is it polymerizes, and it forms this white adherent film that's almost like a scab over the lesion. And that can give you a lot of relief because now nerve endings aren't being irritated. There's a covering over them. So I found that one of the best things if you can, but you have to get the mouth dry enough for that to adhere. So those are the things you can do for canker sores.
Those are ways of treating it. It's not really ever going to make it go away faster. You're just trying to alleviate the pain.
Right. Just manage the pain, yeah, and let your body heal it. Again, we don't understand what the triggers are, but we think things like some people who have braces, that might be more irritating.
Oh, yeah.
If you bite your tongue or you bite your cheek, then that can be a nidus or a way for that to start. So you have to be careful of those things. But otherwise, it just comes randomly. But it does, around the holidays, you're eating more chocolate, eating more nuts, you're sleep deprived, you're stressed, and they tend to be more common. Again, 20% of the population have these.
Now that's canker.
Yeah, and canker. And cankers are not on the outside of the lips, they're inside of the mouth. Okay. So if you can see it, with your mouth closed, it's not going to be a canker sore. It's got to be the outside. So cold sores, these tend to be on the outside of the lips or just around the lips in the perioral region, sometimes under the nose. And those tend to have, they just look red, kind of crusty, scab-like. And they usually begin with a little burning or a tingling on the skin before you really see too much. And if you've had those people that have had cold sores, they know when it's coming. Yeah. And the best thing you can do when that treatment, those symptoms are beginning, is get a treatment for it. And we use oral antivirals because this is in the herpes family of viruses. It's not an STD. This is herpes class 1. So these tend to be around the mouth. But they can be contagious too, so you don't want to, be kissing people or somebody who's got a cold sore because you can contract it that way. Mm-hmm. But we use the antivirals, acyclovir or Valtrex, especially early on, because what those medicines do is they prevent the virus from adhering to the cells in the tissue they're going to infect. And it's like any other virus. If you can stop it, the progression early on, you'll be able to make a mark in reducing the illness. So that's a good treatment. And then some people will use Abreva, which is an antiviral, and that's a topical cream that you can put on early. Again, when you know you've had these, and here it comes again, it's tingling, it's burning, and I'm starting to see a little bit of red. That's when you put this on. But the Valtrex or acyclovir, the oral antiviral medications, really are probably the best treatment for that.
So you can reduce the number of days that you have to deal with that if you treat it.
Absolutely, yes. And some people who get them recurrently, they'll take an antiviral every day. But most people, it's a couple times a year, and when it comes on, it never comes at a convenient time, right? It's a family gathering, it's a wedding, it's family pictures, and now you got these ugly sores all over around your mouth. And so you want to get rid of those, obviously, as soon as you can, just because it's unsightly. And it's not comfortable. It doesn't hurt like the canker sores do, but there is some pain involved with it, and it really is not a nice thing to look at. People are really conscientious of those, so they can be treated.
So this being herpes is not brought on necessarily by the coffee, the chocolate, and the things like the canker.
No, this is, again, anytime your immune system is suppressed or you're stressed, you're more likely to have this. So it's the same, stress can trigger it, but it's not the same as a canker sore, which is going to just arise whenever it wants to.
All right. Well, that's good to know. And so we can take care of that usually without a visit, or potentially.
Yes. And like I said, if you've had cold sores and your provider knows that, often they'll call it in. But they might want to see you the first time or two just to make sure. But again, this is the time of the year when we see it. So I wanted your listeners to have some strategies to help manage this better, because they're either ugly or very uncomfortable, and they're easy to treat.
Very good. And my listeners are under stress.
I hope not. You're supposed to play the right kind of music to make them calm.
We'll try that. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate the advice as always. Dr. Tim McKnight here on our Talk with the Doc.